one of the reasons to come out in winter is to design the future pruning for the future vintage. When we go into a vineyard as a wine grower, we're reinterpreting the successes and the weaknesses of the prior vintage. We can see it laid out in certain qualities on the vine. We can see more clearly the short shoots that we wanted to have grow into larger shoots, because we need to have a certain number of leaves to fully ripen a cluster on that cane. And so we can immediately come in and assess a vineyard in winter by looking at the finished cycle of the year, frozen in time in the prunings. And then when we've got a successful block like this, we're going to come in and think and rethink the way we're going to prune based on the way we want to grow, the character of the wine we want to harvest, and the way we're going to develop the canopy for that wine flavor. One of the biggest drivers in wine flavor is light and shade on the fruit. In Washington, despite this fog that's generated by the Columbia River today in the cold, is we have this big blue sky constantly. We harvest an enormous amount of sun, and we're harvesting a huge amount of sunlight, and the balance of the shade and exposure of the fruit is a big driver. And so pruning is a massive driver on quality, not just on our yield, but also on the quality of the fruit exposure in our red wines and our white wines. So we're rethinking and redesigning. We have different methods of harvest. One of our great successes in the recent years is to harvest with our Pelong Selective Harvester, which is now an over-the-row harvester, and that's very successful for us. We get a full harvest in one day. Often we can harvest at night just as easily as we harvest at day, and capture sometimes in the hot years a night harvest, picking fruit when it's cooler rather than picking fruit throughout the day by hand. And it makes for a very successful harvest in that way. To do that, we often might change the pruning a little bit, both to match the light and shade and also the way we're going to harvest. So winter's a really important season for us, and it's a part of the season that helps us plan the overall outcome of the vintage right from the start. And the way we prune is really going to help shape the way we manage our spring work, make it easier, and have the vine send its energy into just the right amount of its body so that we don't have to make major adjustments later in the spring, and we're off to the races with the right growth, the right time of year, not overgrowing, not undergrowing our vine.